Our topic for today, for this virtual class, is periodic function. Now, what is a periodic function? So let's define first what periodic function is. A periodic function is a function that repeats its values at regular intervals. Okay, for example, yung mga trigonometric functions natin, in which they repeat at intervals of 2 pi radians. Now, these periodic functions are useful in science to describe, oscillations, waves, and other phenomena that, of course, exhibit periodically. So in this case, we are going to learn how to define periodic function in one period. So in here, f of t is a periodic function if f of t plus 2p is equal to f of t, where 2p is the period. In some other books, they use p to represent period. But in our case here, you're going to utilize 2p. Ayan, nakita niyo ba yung mouse ko? 2p to represent the period. So for example, let me have this sketch first before explaining to you or defining one period of the periodic function. As mentioned earlier, a periodic function is a function that repeats its values at irregular intervals. So in this sketch, you can see we have a triangular waveform or a triangle. Okay, how many repetitions here? So I have just written here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 repetitions just to show you that this is a periodic function. This function repeats at irregular interval. Clear? Now let's define this one. 2p again is one period. So in this case, if we start from 0, when t is equal to 0, up to this point, kung hanggang kailan siya mag-repeat ulit to, and from here, from crest to crest, you have 2p equal to 2, and from trough to trough, you have 2p equal to 2. So it has irregular interval or the same period in each of the repetitions. So the vertical axis here represents, of course, the level or the value of the function, and or y-axis natin, yung horizontal axis or the x-axis is the t-axis. Let us define periodic function in one period. So what is the importance of why one period only? So the fact that this function repeats at a regular interval, so enough na that we can represent that function in one period. And we have just to specify kung saan tayo magsisimula, if where from this sketch tayo magsimula ng isang period natin. It's like 0 to 2, that is one period. From -1 to +1, this is also one period. So let's try 0 to 2, defining this function from 0 to 2. So here, we write f of t is equal to, as you can see here, and 0 to 1, negative yung slope. That's why we have negative t. Okay? Plus, the intercept is +1. So dapat you know how to express this line here or to write its equivalent or the expression or the function. Negative slope, and the slope is -1 since the change in y is equal to the change in x. So if you are to solve for the slope, you will get -1. And the intercept, solving using the point slope form or maybe how to form that line, linear lang siya. So you will see that when t is equal to 0, the value of the function is 1. So that is the intercept, y-intercept for that matter. This is the value of the function from 0 to 1. And from 1 to 2, to complete the cycle or one whole of the function in one period of this interval. So we have, so this case, a line siya that has a positive na slope. +1 for this case, since the change in y is equal to change in x. If you are to solve for the slope, you will get 1. That's why we have t. And then the intercept, if you extend this one, this line here, you will see that The intercept is -1. That's why we have t minus 1 from, so you're right, t minus 1 from 1 to 2. So that is the definition in one period. Now, if we choose this one, -1 to +1, so we can define this as, again, from -1 to 0, we have t plus 1 as a function. And from 0 to 1, we have negative t plus 1. Okay, so just remember how to write the equation of the line or the slope-intercept form to write the function or the value of the functions is linear yung given natin. So 2p is the period, and what else? Yeah. Again, so let's refresh ourselves. 2p represents one period, and in here, the function repeats, okay, its values at regular intervals. In this case, you have 2 every, ayan, 2 na value ng time mo, the function repeats. So you use again y is equal to mx plus b as your guide to write, the equation or the expression for this linear function. I'm showing you here, if you start from -1 to +1, so you get this value of the function. Now that I have shown you two ways of defining the periodic function in one period, now let's move on to finding for the Laplace transform of the periodic function. So I will not be deriving anymore how we were able to arrive into this factor. Present pa rin itong kernel function, or of course, this is integral transform. So we utilize integration for determining the transform of the periodic function. So if f of t is a periodic function of period 2p, again, so in other books, they use p instead of 2p. The Laplace transform of f of t is equal to, so meron tayong factor na present dito, that is 1 over 1 minus e raised to negative 2p times s. Again, 2p is one period, times the integral of e raised to negative st times f of t dt with limits from 0 to 2p, or one period. Now you are going to use this formula to find for the Laplace transform of periodic function. So let's have this example, and I will be presenting you with a sketch first. So pwedeng given yung sketch, and then your task is to define the periodic function in one period and apply it in the formula later. Or pwedeng given na yung mismong definition. In English, the definition is given and your task is to write the expression or plug in into that formula that I have shown you earlier. So the horizontal axis is the t-axis. The vertical axis is, of course, the f of t. I am going to draw first that periodic function, so maybe 2 or 3 repetitions, just to show you that this is a function that repeats, okay, periodically with the at regular intervals. So as you can see here, 0 to 1, value is 0. Tapos pag 1 to 2, you have a positive slope. 2 to 3, 0 again. 3 to 4, positive slope. So this is an example of a periodic function. Since we are asked to solve for the Laplace transform, so we define first, okay, that function in one period. So pwedeng from 0 to 2. Ayan, tingnan natin ha. Saan siya ulit magsimula, di ba? Ito yung function natin. You start again from 2 up to what? 4, and then it repeats again. Right? So you can start from 0 to from this point up to 2. So this is one period. 2p is equal to 2. Or if you have chosen from 1, this is the point kung saan, di ba, nag-start. So again, para mag-repeat siya ulit, so the next one will be at this point. So this is also 2p. From 1 to 3, or pwedeng from 2 to 4. So whichever. Pag hindi naman naka-specify, if it's not specified in the instruction or the direction, you always start from 0 in defining the function. Now, let's learn how to define the given periodic function in one period. So define first f of t in one period. Since it's not specified, so you start from 0. Okay, or 0 to 2p. Since 2p is equal to 2, so you apply later the limits properly. F of t now is equal to, ayan, from 0 to 2, hindi naman yan diretso, di ba? Or a constant na value. So you have, from this particular na interval na 0 to 2, you have a function na 0. Tapos from 1 to 2, you have a line na may positive na slope and the intercept is negative 1. So isulat na natin. Go. 0 to 1, the value is 0 when t is from 0 to 1. And from 1 to 2, you have a positive slope. In this case, positive 1 yung slope. And by just looking at it, sanay na ako na, alam ko na kaagad, okay, ito yung slope niyan. Because yung change in y, yung change in y is equal to change in x. Diba ano ba yung slope? Recall the formula for solving for the slope, guys. It's equal to, m is equal to change in y over change in x, or y, di ba may dalawang points tayo? Nakita ba yung mouse code? Can you see my mouse pointer? You have to consider, diba, dalawang points para makuha natin yung slope. Point 1, point 2. So this point 1, ano yung coordinates natin dito? You have 1, 0. 1 yung value ni x and 0 yung value ni y. At this point, you have x is equal to 2 and y is equal to 1. Now, if you are to use the formula ng slope para ma-determine natin, that is y sub 2, yung y dito is 1 minus y sub 1, so 0. So 1 minus 0 is 1 divided by the change in x. So x sub 2, our x is 2, minus x sub 1, which is 1. So 2 minus 1 is 1. 1 divided by 1 is positive 1. That's why we have a slope na equal to 1. Kaya gamit yung expression na y is equal to mx plus b. M as the slope and b as the y-intercept. Kaya ko lang siya in-extend here para makita ko na kaagad, okay, I have an intercept na negative 1. Pwede mo rin gamitin tong point na to just to justify na tama yung expression mo, linear na function. So much for that explanation. So I'm writing now t minus 1 as the function from 1 to 2. The next step is, of course, to write the formula for the Laplace transform of periodic function, and that is 1 over 1 minus e raised to negative 2ps. Again, this factor is always present, lalo na kapag periodic function. Okay, 2p should be replaced later by the value of the period times the integral of e raised to negative st times f of t dt with limits from 0 to 2p. Now, we plug in the value of 2p. What is 2p? 2p is equal to 2. So 1 over 1 minus e raised to negative, the value of 2p is 2 times s times the integral of e raised to negative st times f of t dt. So at this case, we did not write first yung value ng f of t since the limits that we're going to use is 0 to 2. Bakit, sir? Kasi, di ba, from 0 to 2 na interval, at this particular interval, you have two different values of the functions, di ba? From 0 to 1 and then 1 to 2. What we'll do is to write the equivalent or using the property of definite integral wherein the sum of the integrals in that particular interval. So meron tayong 0 to 1 na limit tapos 1 to 2. So here, this is what I'm talking about. First, we write write muna natin yung mismong factor. 1 over 1 minus e raised to negative 2s. Okay, so the first interval, at this particular interval, yung function natin is 0, di ba? So you have 0 to 1. E raised to negative st times 0, ayan, times dt. Kasi yung value ng function from 0 to 1 is 0 times the kernel. And then the other one, so mag-plus lang tayo kasi sum. That is the equivalent of this particular definite integral. Next one naman is 1 to 2. So yung lower limit dito will be, ito yung upper limit dun sa unang term. So 1 to 2 naman is integral of e raised to negative st. What's the value of the function? T minus 1. Now, this sum of integrals is equal to this integral. Yan yung ating property ng definite integral. Since the first term is may function na 0, kaya cancel na yung term na yan. So we are left with only one term for integration. So again, we copy the factor, nasa labas yun ng integration symbol, ibig sabihin that's part of the answer already. So times the integral of e raised to negative st times t minus 1 dt with limits from 1 to 2. Now what I'm doing here is ginagamit ko yung technique for yung shortcut na technique or shorthand method in doing integration by parts. So itong case na to, okay, makinig if yung integrand natin contains algebraic function, itong algebraic lang to. Ito naman exponential function. So pag ganun, you can directly get the the answer or the integral. So yung u natin sa part na to in the left side, left column, you differentiate. And then sa right side naman or right column natin, we integrate. So until when? Hanggang sa mag-zero. The good thing about algebraic functions, if you differentiate and differentiate hanggang sa mag-zero siya. Ganun yung maganda dun sa algebraic function. Pero pag exponential times trigo function, iba yung case na yon. Kasi it will just repeat or go back to its original na form. So hindi siya applicable yung ganitong technique. Tandaan na, applicable lang tong technique for algebraic times exponential, algebraic times trigonometric, but not for trigo times exponential. Okay, so let's continue. As I said earlier, yung left column, we differentiate. Ayan, so differentiate t minus 1, that is 1. And then integrate naman sa right side, so you have e raised to minus st times the neutralizing factor, the negative 1 over s. Again, differentiate the constant, you will have 0. So yun na, hanggang dyan ka lang pwede mag-integrate. So now you integrate the right side, so you have e raised to negative st times the neutralizing factor and negative 1 over s times negative 1 over s is positive 1 over s squared. Now, yung pairing natin, yung product is u times v. Diba? Kasi ito na yung integral nitong unang row natin. And this one here is already v, kaya ito yung pairing u, v, u, v, but the sign will just alternate. So plus, minus. Okay, so alternating yung sign. Plus, minus. Kung madami yan, like good ito for, kunyari, quadratic or variable na raised to 4 kasi alternating lang yung sign, plus minus plus minus. So now writing the equivalent of this integral, you have an integral of e raised negative st times t minus 1 dt is equal to t minus 1 times negative yan, e raised to negative st over s minus e raised to negative st over s squared. Okay, that's it. So we plug in dun sa ating equation na to and then apply the limits afterwards. Okay, let's go to the next page. Write the factor again, 1 over 1 minus e raised to negative 2s. Ito na yung result kanina using integration by parts na technique. Copy ko muna, guys. So you have your notes naman, di ba? So you just copy first the limits 1 to 2. Now we apply upper limit first minus lower limit. Again, just to refresh yourselves doing integration kapag definite siya. So upper limit is 2, lower limit is 1. So upper limit minus lower limit, so you have 2 minus 1 times e raised to negative 2s. Tandaan na sa t natin siya ina-apply, not sa s, since we are solving for Laplace transform. Okay, now minus the lower limit. So we have 1 yung lower limit. So 1 minus 1 is 0. Okay, clear na tayo dyan. Minus 1 over s squared e raised to negative s. Don't forget to write properly the grouping symbol since 1 over 1 minus e raised to negative 2s is a factor na intended for the entire right-hand side of the equation. So just showing you bakit naging 0 again. So 1 minus 1 is 0. Now we simplify. That's it. we put it into one rational expression. Ito naman, negative times negative is positive. Ayan. So plus, ano na tayo dyan? Plus e raised to negative s over s squared. So this is just, step by step or doing step by step how to put it into one rational expression. So itong second and third term, pareho ng denominator. So you can put them into one fraction. Just showing you, the step-by-step method. So factoring out negative times the quantity e raised to negative 2s minus e raised to negative s all over s squared. Now it's easy to put it into one fraction. Copyin mo natin yung factor na sa labas. Ayan na. So nakita nyo, di ba? So S yung denominator ng first term. So para ma-satisfy natin LCD nila, so merong S doon sa numerator. So negative S times e raised to negative 2S minus e raised to negative 2S plus e raised to negative S all over S squared. Okay, if you can see here, yung first term, di ba kanina? Ayan. Negative E over S lang siya, di ba? So because of this S, satisfy na natin. Okay, just LCD lang or combining it into one rational expression. So the next step is unahin natin yung positive in writing for the final answer. And then ito na yung magiging denominator natin, the product of this, s squared times this factor. Okay, muna ko muna yung e raised to negative s. And then minus the quantity s plus 1 times e raised to minus 2s. Since common, di ba, yung e raised to minus 2s sa first two terms. All over s squared times 1 minus e raised to negative 2s. So for your seat work number 10, let me explain this one before you continue. Now we are to define one period. Ano ba yung period natin? What is 2p here? If we start from 0, so dito lang siya. Ayan, as you can see, if we start from here, from this point, one cycle will end at this point sa 2. Kasi ulit-ulit siya, di ba? It will repeat again. And then, if you start from here, from 1, itong point na to, it will end at this point, this sa 3. That is 2p. So ano ba yung 2p natin? Equal to 2. So that's it. Regular interval niya. So 2 yung bawat period. Now let's define this one. So 0 to 2 lang yung ating i-define. So you must learn how to do it on your own. So after this explanation, I will let you answer or define one period of the function. Okay, bakit 1? Nagets ba kung bakit 1? Constant lang, oh. From 0 to 1, the value of the function is 1. Pagdating dun sa 1 to 2, we have a line that is, or that has a negative na slope. Intercept is, of course, if you extend this line, positive. And by, sketching alone, you can get kaagad kung ano yung intercept, and that is positive 2. If you don't know how to, kasi magkaroon kayo ng problem with the sketching kung hindi accurate or symmetrical yung drawing ninyo, hindi constant kumbaga yung mga intervals. So baka trial and error, you will get the wrong value. Anyway, I'll be showing you later how to determine the intercept using mathematical or geometrical na calculations. Pinapakita dito na negative yung slope. Yung slope kasi nito, as you can see, 1 lang din siya, but in this case, negative 1. Change in x is equal to change in y. In this case, select 2 points ha, para makuha. So negative t plus 2. Intercept natin is positive 2. This is your seat work number 10. So na-define na natin in one period. Sige, let's proceed to the next step. And that is to apply it do sa ating formula. 1 over 1 minus e raised to negative 2ps integral of e raised to negative st, the kernel function, times f of t dt with limits from 0 to 2p. Again, 2p is equal to 2. So yung equivalent nun, dalawa yun guys ha. Yung unang term mo, limits, and limit mo is 0 to 1. What is the function? 1. Hindi siya makakancel. Right? Present yung first term. Plus, the integral of e raised to negative st times the function from 1 to 2. Ayan, yung sinasabi ko di ba na 0 to 2 yung integral natin, di ba? So e raised to negative st times f of t dt. So sa Laplace ni f of ni periodic function, lagi may factor na 1 over 1 minus e raised to negative 2p times s. Okay, since 2 na yung ano, pwede nang palitan dito guys, yung negative 2s since 2p is equal to 2. So yung sabi ko na to is equivalent to what? Integral from 0 to 1 yung limit plus 1 to 2. Yung upper limit nito is the lower limit of the next term. Ito yung interval na 0 to 2. So what is the function here? 1. Pero laging present si kernel. Ito present si kernel function. And then what's the function here? Negative yung slope, positive 2 yung intercept, right? Don't forget to complete this one. May dt dapat. May dt rin to. And the factor. Okay, you know what to do next? Integrate using the formula of the, or using some techniques that you know in integration. Kunyari, maging complicated na yung figure, for example. So ito yung itsura ng ating periodic function. Pag ganun siya, isang period lang yung nilagay ko. 1 period. So 2p is equal to, so now let's define this 1 period. Okay, so f of t is equal to, sa baba na lang para dito yung computation na sinasabi ko. So f of t is equal to, as you can see, so meron tayong line to ha, hindi to curve, sorry guys. Line yan. Ganun yung slope. Ano yung slope nito? Positive or negative? Pag ganyan yung line. Positive yung slope natin. Okay? So, ilang functions yung involved dito? So, meron tayong 0 to 1. Tapos, from 1 to hanggang saan yung line mo? 1 to 3. And the last is 3 to 4. So, sa 0 to 1, what's the value of the function? It's positive, negative 2. Diba? Ito yun, no? Negative. From 1 to 3, ito yung solve natin. Kasi nga, okay. Para ipakita ko sa inyo paano kinukuha yung intercept. Although, i-extend mo lang to, yun na yung intercept niya. Kaso nga lang, baka, saan kaya yung intercept nito? So, baka magkamali ka, di ba? So, yung sure tayo dito na yung slope is positive. So, gamitin natin yung idea na y is equal to mx plus b. So, what is b? B is the y-intercept. So, kapag ito yung ginamit natin na mga variables t, tapos ito naman is f of t. This is just an equivalent. Ayan. F of t yung ating y, and then m is the slope, x is t, and then plus b. Nagets nyo? So, we start with the slope muna. So, pili ka lang. You can either choose this point here, itong point na to, or and this point. 2 points lang. Kailangan natin. Ano yung point na to, guys? What is the value of x? 3. What is the value of y? 2. So this will be point 2. And this point here is our point 1. Okay, so dalawang points. Yung slope na sinasabi ko, di ba, kung ito yung line natin, so meron tayong change in y, change in x yung horizontal, di ba? So the formula is change in y over change in x. Do you still recall this one? Change in y. So y sub 1, y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. What is y sub 2? Tingnan natin dito. 2, right? What is y sub 1? 0. So we are after positive na slope. Dapat positive yung magiging result. Now, x sub 2 is 3. Anong x sub 1 natin? 2. So what is the value of the slope? 2 minus 0 is 2. 3 minus 2 is 1. 2 divided by 1 is positive 2. Ibig sabihin sa ating expression, meron tayong 2t. Ngayon, our concern is the intercept. Paano sir intercept? Pwede natin gamitin yung point slope form. Para ma-establish natin yung y is equal to mx plus b. Point slope. So we have y minus y sub 1. Pili ka lang kung anong point yung gagamitin mo. Equal to m times x minus x sub 1. So copy lang natin y is equal to, if we choose this point, yung point 1 natin is, what is x? 2. What is y? 0. Right? So 0 dito ilalagay. M is equal to 2. Copy mo lang yung x minus x sub 1 is 2. So we can establish na yung itong expression. So that's why we have y is equal to 2 times x, 2x. 2 times negative 2 minus 4. Anong napansin niyo? Yung b, nakita na natin, di ba? Yung b is this one. B is equal to negative 4. So we have to write minus 4 here. Kaya pag in-extend natin to, yan, 3, 4. Ayan, negative 4. So we write now from 1 to 3, our line is 2t minus 4. So what is now the function from 3 to 4? Positive 2. Okay, so that's it.